Hi, this is Hurling.
Hi, this is Judy. Welcome to Travel Trail Sail.
Judy and I recently spent 3 days in Charleston, South Carolina. And this is a beautiful, historic city with so many things to see and do. In 3 days, it's hard to do all the must-do attractions, but we actually covered a lot of ground. And we wanted to share our experience with you in case you're planning a trip to Charleston. We're traveling in our RV, and so we stayed in Mount Pleasant, just on the other side of the river from Charleston at the KOA. We'll have a review coming up of the Mount Pleasant KOA soon, but it really did make a wonderful home base for us to explore the Charleston area.
Yeah, I would agree.
And since we had 3 days, we thought we'd divide it up and see all the things we could see each day. And on day one, we thought we'd start with some history. And Charleston has an area called Fort Sumter. It's a historic fort out in the middle of Charleston Harbor that was really a key place in the Civil War. It's where the first shots were fired. And so we thought this would be a great place to start our exploration of Charleston. But since it is in the middle of the water, you have to take a boat ride to get out there. There's a private tour company that gives you rides to Fort Sumter. And you can leave from either downtown Charleston or from Patriot Point, which is in Mount Pleasant. So since we're staying in Mount Pleasant, that's where we started our adventure. And we got one of the first tours of the morning. Beautiful 30-minute ride out on the water, out to the fort. And as you're traveling there, the guide will narrate and share interesting points of reference and history, and you get to learn quite a bit. But it was just a beautiful day for a boat ride, too. Once we got to the fort, we had about an hour to explore. And this fort used to be much bigger. It was pretty amazing because the cannon fire during the Civil War knocked down a story or two from the building. And you can still see some of the cannons that would have been used during that time. And you can see the marks left from cannon shot, including places where clearly a cannonball has left its mark. So we had about an hour to explore. It was just enough time to get a good sample of the fort, and then we got on the boat, headed back. And where the boat leaves from is Patriot Point. There's actually a naval museum there, so when you're on the boat and you're starting your ride out to the fort, you'll be passing right by the USS Yorktown. It's an aircraft carrier. Now, I'd never been on an aircraft carrier before.
Yeah, me either.
And this was really interesting. You can take self-guided tours, so we thought this is a great thing to do as the next part of our adventure for day one. So we explored the Yorktown. We got to be on the bridge. We got to see the galley and the mess hall. We even got to see the brig. So glad we weren't locked up there.
Right?
It did not look like a fun place to be.
No, not fun.
But it was really cool to walk around. And as you're exploring the ship, they actually have a really amazing collection of historic aircraft. So everything from World War II up to relatively modern naval planes. So you can check out all these really cool airplanes. There was even a Mercury space capsule.
Oh, yeah, it was awesome. So interesting.
Yeah.
And you look inside and you think, wow, there were actually people in that little, space.
It was really small, but super interesting. So we think visiting the Yorktown is definitely something you'd want to include in your visit to Charleston. The only thing, Judy, was when we were at the Yorktown, there was a lot of stairs to climb.
Yeah, so a couple things just to be aware of. So the USS Yorktown has a great self-guided tour. It's very well marked, but a lot of areas are very narrow or very narrow, steep stairs. So just something to be aware of. And then also, Patriot Point, there are no restaurants, no food trucks. The only thing there to eat are, some snacks at the gift store. So if you plan to go to Fort Sumter and see the USS Yorktown, you're talking several hours, so you may want to pack a picnic lunch.
Yeah, that would have been a really, there was a few picnic tables by the parking lot. That would have been a nice place for a picnic.
Yep, absolutely.
So that was day one exploring in the Charleston area. It was a wonderful day and really enjoyed it.
It was great. Second day in Charleston, we decided to head towards the historic area of Charleston, and our first stop was the Pineapple Fountain. Now, as you may know, a pineapple is the symbol of hospitality, and this was a very big fountain shaped like a pineapple, and it was absolutely beautiful. Also, a very popular spot. So, if you go, be prepared for a lot of people.
You want to take a selfie there. I know you do. And just be patient because everybody else there seemed to want to do the same.
Yeah, but it was very pretty. It was a beautiful fountain. And in that same area, there's a nice walking path along the harbor. It's all or almost all shaded, so it was really nice. And from there, we could walk to the historic kind of area of Charleston and check out, the houses on Rainbow Row and, just look at all those 18th century homes that are just so beautiful and so iconic of Charleston. When you think of Charleston, you think of these houses, right?
Yeah, with the beautiful porches outside, and some of them even had gas lanterns. There was a sign on one of them that George Washington had stayed there. So
that's right.
It was really cool to see.
Yeah, it was just such a pretty area. So pretty to walk around. So that was, absolutely something you should do when you're in Charleston, is just to walk around that area and just look at all those beautiful historic homes.
Now, if you're visiting that part of Charleston, know that it is a historic area, which means the roads may be a little bit narrow. We're driving a large pickup because we tow a travel trailer, and so we were a little bit concerned, where are we going to park? I came across a tip from Chad and Tara on changing lanes. They mentioned that you could find certain parking lots and use the Honk app to reserve them, and so we checked that out. I'll have a link to the parking area that we used on our website, but that worked out really well.
It did work out really well, and it was very centrally located, so it was pretty much a perfect parking space, and it fit our truck just fine.
Yep.
So from the historic area, we drove a little ways outside to go visit the Angel Oak tree, which we heard was a must-see, and I would agree. It is definitely a must-see when you're in the Charleston area. This oak tree is about 400 years old, and it apparently can live to be 1,000 years old, which
that's just amazing.
I sure hope it does, because it's an absolutely gorgeous tree. I've never seen a tree like this before. It had these huge branches that just went on and on and on, and just an amazing tree. So it's well worth taking the drive outside of Charleston to see it. Absolutely,
and it wasn't that far of a drive. The last little bit of the drive is on a narrow gravel road, and there's no parking lot or anything there, so what you're going to be doing is parking along the side of the road, and we were able to find a spot just a little ways down the road where we could back our pickup in. But just be advised, if you're trying to travel there in a large RV or an oversized vehicle, parking may be just a little bit of a challenge, but well worth it. The Angel Oak was amazing.
Beautiful, amazing tree. So check it out if you're in Charleston for sure.
We only had one day left in the Charleston area, and one of the things we really wanted to do was to see a beach. We're so close to the ocean, and since we were staying in Mount Pleasant, one of the closest beaches was Sullivan's Island. So we thought that's what we're going to do for day 3. As we were heading there, we actually discovered a little coffee roastery. Now that's a great way to start your day, fresh coffee. And I'm not talking about a coffee shop, an actual coffee roastery. So it's just in a strip mall. It's a small place, the Cooper River Coffee Roastery, and it was a really tasty cup. You'll want to check it out. From there, we headed on to Sullivan's Island, and one of the iconic landmarks there is the Sullivan's Island Lighthouse. Now, you know how most lighthouses are round, and usually they're painted in different colors and things so that you can identify them. Well, this one's a little different. It was made in the 1960s, and it's triangular shaped.
It looks like it was made in the 1960s.
Absolutely, but it's really cool, and
It is. Mhm.
it's 140 feet tall. It's painted in two different colors, and it's very recognizable. Near the lighthouse, there is a little bit of street parking, and so we were able to park our vehicle right there, and then it was a short walk onto the beach. And it is a beautiful sandy beach, really wide, long beach, goes on for miles, and it was just gorgeous.
Yeah, it was a very pretty beach. Yes, absolutely.
So we took a nice long walk on the beach. We actually walked all the way down to Fort Moultrie. And as we were walking along, we saw a bunch of jellyfish.
A lot of
that had
jellyfish.
and these were big jellyfish.
They were big, yes.
But the beach itself was really nice and clean. We took a nice long walk. Now, Fort Moultrie is kind of the parallel to Fort Sumter. During the Revolutionary War, when it was originally built, it was made of wood timbers. And you think a fort made of timbers? But a British fleet came into Charleston Harbor and tried firing on it. But because these trees were kind of flexible, the cannonballs ended up bouncing off. And so this fort was able to do significant damage to a British fleet. And so that's pretty amazing. But fast forward 100 years, and they've reinforced it, built it up into a significant fort. And so when the Civil War starts, you have Fort Sumter in the harbor, and then Fort Moultrie, and the two are firing cannons back and forth at each other across the harbor. It's a really interesting piece of history. You can walk around outside the fort. There's an amazing historic cannon display. Now, if you want to visit the inside, there's some great displays there too. It is a National Park Service facility, and so there's a small fee if you want to go inside. But definitely worth checking out the fort and that area. So from there, we were able to walk back the beach.
Yeah, and it was, it was really nice actually when we walked back to have parked by that lighthouse, because it was a very easy landmark to spot, and it was like, oh yeah, that's where we parked, because otherwise, the landscape kind of looks the same from the beach, right? So that was actually a really good spot to park.
So that worked out really well. But after a long day of walking on the beach and exploring the fort, I was getting hungry. How about you?
Yeah, I was really hungry. And so we went to check out a place that was highly recommended to us by some dear friends called Melvin's Barbecue. And they have been around since 1939. They have several locations in the Charleston area. It was awesome food, very fresh. The barbecue was really good. I think we were there on a Tuesday, and they had a lunch special where you got a big pile of barbecue, hush puppies, and 2 donut onion rings. And these were the largest onion rings I have ever seen in my life. They were huge.
They really were the size of a large donut, but they were so sweet and tasty, really delicious.
They best onion rings ever. And the hush puppies, the barbecue, that was all very good too. But those onion rings, oh my gosh, unbelievable. So very, very tasty. And then we topped it off with their homemade banana pudding.
Yep.
So,
when we were ordering, they said, well, we don't have any ready yet, but by the time you're done, we'll have some fresh banana pudding. So had an order of that, and that too was really, really tasty.
it was very good. So if you're in Charleston, check out Melvin's Barbecue.
So that's a taste of what you can do in the Charleston area. And again, we couldn't cover everything. If we had another day, maybe we would have headed down to the Morris Island Lighthouse, which was the older lighthouse. Or there's a winery that's near Morris Island Lighthouse that's supposed to be really good. So many more things to see and do. So many restaurants we didn't get a chance to try.
It's such a foodie town, right? And yeah, I'd love to go back and try more local restaurants.
So here's the thing. If you visited Charleston, you probably have some favorites. And if we're planning our next trip, we need your advice. Where should we have visited? What did we miss on our trip to Charleston? Please leave us a comment and let us know your favorite thing to do when you're in Charleston. But with that, we just want to say thank you for joining us. We love having you join our videos and our adventures, and really can't wait to see you again next time.